In this video, we're going to talk about using cover price as a pricing tool for comic books and how it leaves a lot to be desired, to put it lightly. And stick with me for just a second here as I explain the intent of this video. You know, I really care about this community. I care about the health of this community. I care about buyers and I care about sellers. And I think that we will have a stronger, better community if we have good, accurate, consistent pricing tools that we can rely upon. And right now, we just don't have any of those consistent, reliable pricing tools. All of the pricing tools out there in the marketplace today for comics leave something to be desired. They're all just off. They're just either too high or too low, or they're just wrong. And the frustrating thing about it, from me as somebody who prices comics every single day, is that it's a relatively simple line of thought to get to a fair market value for a comic book. I think this is absolutely something that can be solved with some minor tweaking, or at least some attention put into it. And stick with me to the end of the video where I talk a little bit more about that and go into it a little bit more detail. But the reason that this video came about is a gentleman reached out with a collection. You know, I believe that the deal didn't go through because he had an unrealistic expectation of the value of his books because of cover price. And I think that because of that, it's doing a disservice to the community, that they're putting these unrealistic expectations into people's minds, and that's never good. This particular deal also, I think a big part of it was he wanted to sell it all in one deal. He had like 800 raw books and 31 slabs, and he was hoping to drive them out and not have to ship them. And so there was, a lot that went into it. But this collection may still be available. I think it might be a good opportunity for a collector, probably not a dealer. I think that he's reasonable about the price that he wants for these books, but he wants somebody that's within driving distance of Iowa, and is probably going to be a price that wouldn't make sense to a dealer, but might make great sense to a collector or hobbyist who does, sell books on the side. So if you're interested, reach out to me and I might be able to connect you to this seller. Also, I recently did a video just like this for Go Collect. So this video is about cover price, and I recently did one about Go Collect, and I'm happy to report that Go Collect actually reached out to me after I did that video and said, hey, we saw your video. We love where your head's at. We see that your heart's in the right place and that you care about this community. And we have decided to take a look at our algorithm for our pricing tool for FMV. And we'd like you to be a part of helping us get this thing in line. I was just over the moon that they reached out to me like this. I'm like, this is amazing. That's exactly, the intent. Like, I'm so glad that they're putting effort and work into this. And so we're not quite there yet. We're still, working on some different things, but hopefully soon Go Collect is going to roll out a new algorithm for their FMV, and hopefully it will be closer in line. So stay tuned. I'll keep you updated on that. And I'm hoping also that Cover Price does it as well. There's a lot of people that use Cover Price, and there's a lot of people that use Go Collect, and this community would benefit greatly if both of those pricing tools, had accurate, consistent, reliable FMVs for books. So I'm hoping that the end result is that both do it. It seems like Go Collect's putting a lot of energy into this. And, from using Cover Price's software, it seems like they're not putting a lot of focus on the pricing tool. It seems like they're just got it to a point where it's just like good enough to where like the community isn't going to completely like reject it as a tool. But it seems like, all of the resources are going into other things that are great within the app. But I think that, more time and energy needs to be focused on the pricing aspect of it. And I'll point out some very specific examples about some basic books and things that, are obviously just not pulling the right data from Cover Price. So with that said, we do always do 2 giveaways here at Bryce Comics. One for the YouTube channel. If you subscribe, comment, and like, you're entered to win 2 free slabs each and every month. And then I also have a website, brycecomics.com. If you weren't aware, you can use code COLLECT10. That code is always active. We always have new inventory coming through the shop. If you sign up for the newsletter over at brycecomics.com, you'll also be entered to win 2 free slabs this month. And follow me on Whatnot. Link down in the description for $15 towards your first purchase on Whatnot, where we always have stuff in the Buy It Now for $15, so you can stop by and pick up a free book. Follow me on Instagram for trades, for grails, and other fresh content over there. And with that said, let's hop into the computer and take a look at this pricing tool. All right, so here we have the collection over on Cover Price. And once again, this collection is potentially available if you think it's something that might interest you. There's 808 raw books and 31 slabbed books. You know, one thing I do like about Cover Price, I do somewhat like the layout. I like how, you know, you can sort. I like how you can go to the price guide and see more information. I like the filter feature. So the only thing I don't like about it is the pricing feature, and that is the only thing I would use this for. So to me, it's completely useless without, you know, accurate pricing. And I just want to show some of the pitfalls here and what to look out for. So when I got this and I saw, okay, well, there's 31 slabs. Typically what I would do is just take 15% off of the Cover Price FMV and then make my offer off of that, because I know that their FMV is consistently between 10 to 20% off. But in a situation like this, when there's only 31 books, I'm like, I'm just going to look these up real quick. We'll get some valuable information, and we get this video out of it, which I think has some valuable information. We're not going to talk about every single book, just the highlighted ones here. And as you can see, a lot of it, you know, a lot of times when it's a consistently selling book, their pricing is pretty good. You know, like 160, 168, 650, 650, 140, 149. I mean, within the realm of reason to have, you know, a slight discrepancy here. This is where it gets a little tricky. I have it valued at $50. I think the most recent sale was like $45. They have it valued at $70. And this is actually a big percentage. And so if you have this big of a percentage and you have 200 books that are this far off, then this actually would be a big problem in coming up with the value. This is where this is like a disservice to the community, you know, is if you are at a starting point and your starting point is about 20% over the fair market value. And this is before we even talk about a dealer's cut. This is just agreeing on the current value of those books in today's market. And if you start at 20% over, like, deals just aren't going to happen, and people are just have these unrealistic expectations of what their books are worth. And this is just for graded books where there's actually consistent sales data that can be got. For the raw books, this number is astronomically higher than that. It's just crazy different, and we'll get to that towards the end of the video. But so if I were to buy this collection at 70% of fair market value, I would absolutely lose money, because first of all, it's 20% higher, so I'm not even going to see that 20%. Now I have a 10% margin. I usually offer 10% off on my website. Sometimes you have to discount them even more than 10% just to get them to move. And then you have fees and overhead and expenses, and all of a sudden you're in the negative. Even if I paid 60% of FMV, I would probably lose money if I went off of Cover Price's FMV, which is why, you know, it's so frustrating that they don't get this in line, because as you're going to see in this video, there's a bunch of seemingly easy fixes that would take this skew way off. But let's take a look at some of them here, starting with this really interesting one, Secret Wars #1. Now, interesting thing about this is he has it listed as the Blue Galactus error. And the Blue Galactus error is a very common error that's in the newsstand editions, the direct editions, the Canadian price variants, and this is what it looks like. This is the error, and this is the corrected version. And there's a bunch of other panels that have it. This top one is the error. This is the corrected one. This is the digital version of it. And it's kind of unknown, you know, like how many of these are out there, but I've heard estimates that it's like half and half, or that, but that seems a little high, because they did actually correct the error. So this is an interesting one, because CGC does not recognize the error on the label. They do not recognize this as an error variant. I don't know why. It is an error variant. It was corrected. They should recognize it, but at this point, the horse has left the barn. There's no way to get caught up on this. They need to stick with just not referencing it, because if they started recognizing it now, then it would appear to be way more rare than it is. But CBCS has always recognized the error, and I don't think that there is a significant difference in price for the error versus the non-error, because there's thousands of copies of this graded by CGC that aren't recognized as an error. So you could have one of these that's CGC, and it could be the Blue Galactus error. You'll never know unless you crack it out. But what's interesting is Cover Price gives a CGC price for a blue error variant, but there is no such thing. There is no CGC blue error variant. It doesn't exist. So how could they give it a price of $304? I don't know, because if you go to GPA and look at the CGC sales of a 9.8, the last sale was $195, low sale of $139, and 210, 180, 180, 186, 170. So I put a value of this of 195, which is what I would think would be a fair price in today's markets. And as you can see, there is no recorded sales of a blue error variant, because a GP analysis only tracks CGC sales, and there is no such thing as a CGC blue error variant. So that one's kind of baffling to me. I don't know where they're pulling this from. Does this mean that they're pulling CBCS data into their CGC price? Whatever they're doing, it's incorrect, because there's just no way you can arrive at this. So let's go to the next one. We have Spawn number 180. This one is interesting, super cool cover. Spawn number 180, they have it at $288. And if we go to recent sales, you can see that the last sale was $288. So that's what they're putting as the fair market value, is the last sale, which was $288. The problem with that is I believe it was an anomaly high. All other sales, it hadn't sold for about 3 years prior to that, but all those sales, even in 2021, at the peak of the market, $94, $81. I think that 288 was an anomaly high. It was over here at auctions, Heritage Auctions. This is the actual sale, and there's probably someone with FU money that just needed to fill their 9.8 spawn run, and this isn't one that you see come up all the time, but that doesn't mean that it's rare. If you go over here and look at the census, there's only 9 CGC 9.8s, only 27 total graded copies, and that's not because this is a rare book. It's because nobody's grading this book. It's not really worth sending in to get graded. Here's a 9.4 that's on eBay for $72.98. Probably won't sell for that, and you can pick up a raw copy, anywhere between $20 and $60. There's plenty of 9.8 raw copies out there that could be got. I don't know if any of these would be. It's very obviously it's a difficult cover. It's got this dark front cover and a dark back cover, if I'm not mistaken. It's got like a black back cover as well. But the point is that it's not a super rare book. It's just that nobody's getting this book graded. There's only 27 on the census. So all those things considered, I think that this would be an anomaly high. And you can't just take, one sale from the last 3 years because there was no others and just say, okay, that's the fair market value. I mean, there has to be some kind of critical thinking that goes into it as well. This is where AI would come in really helpful. Is AI could, easily take a look at this and say, oh, there was only one sale in the last 3 years, but, judging by the era when this came out and how much the print run of was, AI could easily deduce that that was an anomaly, which in my opinion it was. So, what would it sell for today? I don't know. $90 is certainly, in line with historical values and the peak of 2021. So, I think it might sit for anything over $90. But this is kind of a tough one because it just doesn't come up for sale all that often. Here's one that was just, in my opinion, way high. Spider-Man 2099, number 1, the variant second print. So as you can see, it's the second print because it has this blue bar down at the bottom. And I just don't think that this book would sell anywhere near $300 in today's market. And as you can see, the first print is going for about $50. The second print is definitely more rare for this book. The last sale was $68 back in 2018. So this one is interesting. It's like, where are they getting the 300 if there's no recent sales? Let's go to the price guide and see if we click right there on go to price guide and see if there's any information of how they're getting that. So it has an asterisk by the 300 that says last known sale is older than 6 months. So they're showing a sale of $300 in 2023, but GP analysis is not picking up that sale. So typically when it drops off of GPA, that means that the sale didn't actually go through and it wasn't like a legitimate sale. So that might be why they're coming up with 300. But nonetheless, in any case, there's no way somebody's going to pay $300 for this book today in this market. I think $100 is a more reasonable price, about twice that of the first print. All right, this next one is Dr. Aphra number 1. I put it at a value of $52. They put it at a value of $200. And if we go to the price guide, we'll see that they're not pulling the data for this for some reason. They have the right variant. This is the right book. These are the right variants for this book. But they're saying that a 9.8, the most common sale was $200 with an asterisk that says the last known sale is older than 6 months. If you go to GPA, 9.8 last sale was $52, 90-day average was $59, and there's been 14 sales in the last 6 months. So I'm not sure why they're not picking up any of the sales. And so it has only sold over 200 a handful of times, and certainly not in the past few years. So they're just not pulling data on this. And if you were to think about this collection, and if you were to, say there's 300 slabs in this collection, and then you start adding up more and more of these that they're just not pulling the data, that's how you can get this huge skew of the value. All right, now I want to look at this book here, Venom 26. They have it valued at $255. I was like, what? How is this $255? This is a store variant, a store exclusive for Venom 26, limited to 1,000 copies. It's like, how is this a $255 book? And if you go to the price guide, you'll see the same problem that we had with the Dr. Aphra book. Is it has this little asterisk, most common slab sale is $255, with the asterisk saying that there's no sales in the last 6 months. But if you go to GPA, there's plenty of sales. So the actual title of this is the Frankie's Comics Sketch Edition, the Virgin Sketch Edition. The last sale was $85, which was what I put as the value, which I think is actually generous. I'm not sure I could even get $85 for it. That's the only sale this year, but in 2023, there was plenty of sales well below 85, 75, 47, 70, 53, so I'm not even sure I would get $85 for this book. They're just not pulling the sales data for this. It says there's no sales in the last 6 months, and there's plenty of sales. I mean, there's one, and then, but it has never sold for $255, never in the existence of this book. And they're saying that the most common sale price is $255, even though it has never in history sold for that much money. Next, we have Venom 4 newsstand. They put it at $284. So it's this one here, Venom Lethal Protector number 4 newsstand edition. And if we go to the price guide, it says the first appearance of Scream. I like this. I do love this. I love that the key comic information is right here. If they had the correct values and it had all of this and a picture of the book, God, this would be such a great tool. But it says the most common slab sale for a 9.8 is $285 with the asterisk, and the last known sale is older than 6 months. If you come over here to the newsstand edition, Lethal Protector number 4, last sale is $100. The regular direct edition is $62. Newsstand last sale is $100. And if we pull it down here, we see there's 4 sales this year, 15 sales in 2023. The highest of which being 500 back in 2021 around the movie hype. But for them to put a price of $285, I mean, that's just, obviously they're just not pulling the data for this book. So all of those things combined, that's, just some of them here. That's how we were almost 20% off just on the fair market value. So let's take a look at the raw books now. So if you go over here to the filter sort and you click on raw and take away the CGC and hit search. And then I also want to filter, I have it filtered already by the highest price first. So it's saying that the highest price variant in this collection is $299. It's Something is Killing the Children, number 25. This is the 1 in 250 by Werther Dell'Edera. So here's the Dell'Edera variant cover. The last sale, this is the 1 in 250. The last sale was $150 for a CGC 9.8. So they're saying a raw copy is worth 100% more than a graded 9.8. I mean, it's just baffling how far off this is. Like, how could you possibly say that this is worth $300? Maybe there was a $300 sale at some point. And the point is, though, is that whatever they're doing isn't working. It's not correct. Even if there was one at some point, like there has to be a way to get this algorithm to give more realistic numbers, And so the other thing to note is that this is a 9.8 graded copy. It's going to cost $25 to get it graded, about $20 to get it graded, plus shipping both ways. So if that's the only book you're grading, it's going to be like $40 to get it graded. If you have it included with like 25 other books, it's about $26 out the door to get 25 books graded each. But here you can see if it came back a 9.4, if it had two tiny little spine ticks, the 9.4 graded price is $50. It's $50. So when you factor in the cost of grading, now we're at like what? I mean, a $25 raw book if it's not a 9.8, and if you're going to buy a book raw, you better not be paying graded 9.8 prices. So here's another one. I'm not even going to look this one up. I mean, it's saying that a raw price for this is $225, which is crazy. And then there's an asterisk that's saying indicates sales older than 90 days. Okay, that's great. Well, then let's do some AI stuff. Put some AI in there to say what it would be worth today. If you're going to offer up a FMV, a fair market value, offer it up. Like figure out a way to make it realistic instead of just putting an unrealistic number and then an asterisk saying this is probably unrealistic. I mean, I don't know. It's just frustrating for me because when you add all of these up, that's when you get way far off because now you have 800 books that are overvalued, and then you get a total value collection of $22,000, and it's just this incredibly unrealistic number in a collector's head about the value of their book. So this is sorted by value, so you can get an idea. Some awesome books in here, some really cool books. I mean, we got Ultimate Fallout 4 second print. We got a bunch of Spawn variants, Something's Killing the Children, some homages, some Wolverine, some classic keys. Tons of awesome books. Once again, if you're interested in taking a deeper look at this collection and you want to, I would expect you probably wouldn't sell it for less than 10 grand, which I wouldn't pay that high for this, not even close to that for this, because I don't think I could get 10 grand for it. Even if I sold all of these individually, I don't think I can get that high because just the slabs, we're looking at 6,000 before fees and everything, and then you have 800 raw books to sell. Like I think you'd be lucky to get 10 grand out of this thing, and you'd have a ton of work and hours put into this thing. But definitely some cool variants nonetheless. So I want to end by saying a couple things about how I'm hopeful for how this can be fixed in the future. I think AI could be a huge benefit in this specific situation in pricing comic books. Obviously AI, artificial intelligence, is going through massive improvements and rollouts all across our culture. And, if you go to Google right now and type something in, it'll have like an AI response that say, how long do I cook a sweet potato? And it's like, well, if you're going to use this type of sweet potato, use a microwave for this long, and it knows exactly what you're looking for and gives you the exact answer that you're looking for. RIP sweet potato recipe website. Pricing comic books is like a very, very few little lines of thought that I think AI could instantly grasp. So for example, when I price a comic book, I look at the most recent sale in that grade. And we're talking about for graded comic books, right? So for a graded comic book, you look at the most recent sale, and then you look at like the 90-day average. And if there's consistent sales and it's a consistent trend, then it's very easy to say, well, the last sale was 95 and 90 and 98 and 100. So 95, somewhere around there is a good price. Now, sometimes there's nuance and one thing that I always check is the grades above and below. So if you have, especially if it's like an expensive book. So if you have a book that sold for like $1,000, but the grade above it just sold for $800 and the grade below it just sold for $500, then that one in the middle, that 1,000 might be an anomaly that, the curve just hasn't caught up to yet. And so if you price it at 1,000 and the grade above it just sold for 800, you're probably not going to sell that book for $1,000, and the next sale that comes in will be right in line with those three. So you look at the last sale, you look at 90-day average, and you look at the sales of books above and below, and you just make sure that it's all grooving, it's all on the same line. And if there's a big anomaly, then there needs to be an adjustment. And I think that's something that AI could very easily take into account. You type in and say, how much is Fantastic Four 48 and a 6.5 worth? And it would say, well, judging on, the most recent sale and the last 90 day average and the fact that grades above it and below it are selling for this much, we think a fair price for this book is $1,000 or whatever the case may be. So I think that, who knows when or if that will ever come to comics. I mean, I'm probably rooting for that more than anybody else because I price comics every single day. And I realize most people, when using a tool like Cover Price or Go Collect are probably just, the main purpose is to catalog their collection. And these tools are excellent for that. They're excellent at cataloging. They're excellent at key significance, sorting, filtering. I love these tools for that. It's just the pricing thing. So I do understand that, it's not the most important thing to everyone, but almost everyone that catalogs a comic book collection at some point will need to sell it. I mean, that's probably, a big part of keeping it cataloged and updated is when you decide to sell to know how much it's worth or a reasonable price to pay. So I think it's a really important thing to look at. I hope that these two companies, Go Collect and Cover Price, as I said, Go Collect is making some great strides in improving it. And I hope Cover Price follows suit, and I will organically promote either and both of them and I'd like to keep it organic. I don't want to be on anybody's payroll. I want to just be able to say my honest opinion because I use it every day, because that's where the value in this to me is a reliable tool, because I'm going to save so much time if these two companies can get these things in line. I don't have to do all of this deductive reasoning myself for, big old lists of comic books every single day. So thank you for taking the time to stick with me all the way to the end of the video. Don't forget about those giveaways. If you subscribe, comment, and like this video, you're entered to win 2 free slabs this month. And if you head over to brycecomics.com, we always have stuff listed at fair market values. You can rely on that. And if you use code COLLECT10, you get 10% off the listed price. That code is always active. Follow us on Whatnot for live sales. $1 starts on tons of slabs, bunch of giveaways, tons of fun happening over at Whatnot, and I hope to see you there. Link down below for $15 towards your first purchase. Catch me over on Instagram as well at Bryce Comics. Thanks once again for sticking with me to the end. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.